You say people are naive about collaboration. What do you mean by that, Chris?
Well, when it comes to collaboration, there's almost no forethought put into how to achieve it. The assumption is that it's just going to automatically go forward and that everything's going to be fine. It completely tends to ignore the obvious, which is if you are collaborating, by definition, you have a whole bunch of different people with different knowledge, different perspectives, different bottom lines, and you get them all in a room together, and they're going to disagree. So how are you going to manage that disagreement in a way that's going to result in some positive consensus and working together?
Is that why you equate effective engagement, effective collaboration with effective engagement?
Yes, and that both are connected to a very core notion of ownership. Most times when people consider engagement, civic engagement or citizen engagement, that type of thing, what they're talking about normally is having kind of like a big party. That they're going to have a town hall or going to have a session where people can come in and talk. But it's kind of like consultation. It's all one way. But for engagement to be truly effective, there needs to be a sense of ownership. That you have a stake in what's happening and that you can influence what's happening. And so from my perspective, engagement is very much like collaboration. It's kind of like the spirit and underlying motivation for collaboration in that it actually gets people to wanting to do something. It just maybe doesn't do the doing, but in that sense, the ownership is the common factor between collaboration and engagement.
So it was said at the session that government has the right, if you like, to set the parameters for collaborative arrangements because I guess it is the government. Do you agree with that?
No, I think it's bogus. It's bogus because in the context of the issue that they're collaborating on, the government is just like any other stakeholder. They don't have all the information, they don't have all the knowledge, they don't have all the resources, or they don't have all the mandate. So that puts them in the same position as everybody else. I'm not saying that a not-for-profit or a company or another department needs to kind of assume the role of that particular government department. It's just that when they're acting in that limited constraint of around an issue, that they're just like anybody else. And in fact, when government tries to assume that they're more equal than anyone else, that they have some kind of special status, it just poisons the whole collaboration.
You talk about a practical mindset for managers interested in collaboration. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that people need to cultivate a process of inquiry to examine what it is they're doing and how they're doing it and how they're working together and the progress that they're making, and not rely on personalities. Personalities get into leadership characteristics that tend to be quite inappropriate for collaboration. If you can imagine a group of 10 people and they all have serious stakes in an issue, they're not going to surrender their ownership to any one single individual. And so trying to seek out someone who's going to be in charge of this whole process is very, very counterproductive. But leaders tend to do that. They're very decisive. They want to take charge. They want to impose their solution, and they're very dominant. And so those kind of leadership characteristics kind of get in the way of collaboration. And so rather than having the whole process dependent on personalities and leaders, the practical thing to do is to have it dependent on a process. And so what my colleagues and I at the Centre on Governance are doing is proposing a model which we call an inquiring system of collaboration that allows the whole thing to be process-based instead of leadership-based.